simply stated, not everything has to be scheduled and rigid and in your time frame. And I didn't have the pressure of like by 18 you have to do this, by 21 or 30 you have to do this. But it was very much like each hour and each day should be scheduled, and you should have something that you're doing to be productive or to move something forward. And good, bad, or indifferent, I certainly think it's
very encouraging, very inspiring, and she actually motivated me. I appreciate the fact that she was so authentic and very personable, and it really made me feel like I relate to her story. What I aspire to be? Just the best version of myself.
You are listening to Unleash the Podcast, revolutionizing the way women grow, work, live, and lead. Engaging interviews, insightful book reviews, and timeless gems to aid the modern woman in excelling personally and professionally. Hosted by the multi-passionate Tabitha D. James, Unleash the Podcast not only empowers listeners, but also equips them with applicable action-based resources for daily life. Hey friends, and welcome to this week's episode of Unleash the Podcast. Guess what? We have another interview, but before we chat with Shimina, I just want to let you know that the link in the show notes will direct you to all the Unleash updates. At this time, we have kind of postponed and put a pause on all our live in-person events, but we are working tirelessly to make sure that you have some online resources that keep the conversation going, keep you connected, and support you during these changes, challenges, and find the silver lining, if you will, as it relates to COVID and all things Rona. All right, enough of that. Let's get ready to dive into this chat with Shimina, educator turned HR professional with, oh my goodness, such wit and a big old heart, right? She mentions that, she loves wine, she loves God, and didn't God turn water into wine? So doesn't that make that okay? She's a podcaster, a love for running, family, and traveling the world with her wife, a natural coach who can be found giving advice both solicited and unsolicited. So without further ado, we are going to jump into this interview with myself and Shimina. It was quite insightful, and she transparently shares how she's pivoted through career changes and navigating this beautiful thing called life, if you will, and how she unleashes greatness in her corner of the world. Enjoy.
Hi, thank you so much for being on the show. I'm super excited. You guys do not understand how many rodeos we took to get here, but we're here, so we're going to get started. If you'll just tell us a little bit about yourself, like where you're from, how you were growing up, do you have any dream careers or any, some cool kid dreams, anything. Go ahead for it.
Awesome.
Go for it. Well, name is Shimina. I am born and raised California, Southern California. I like to tell people it is very different than Northern California, where I live now. They are indeed two very different states. Let's see, distinctly different. If that could be a whole topic in itself of the differences between Northern and Southern California. So, but I was a pretty boring kid. I would tell people I was a goody two shoes. So I did all the right things. I said the right things. I went to church. I did not skip school. There was lots of temptations around, but I was so afraid to get in trouble. I'm the youngest of three. I have an older brother and an older sister, and I saw the error of their ways. So for me, there weren't that many restrictions growing up because my mom was probably it can't get worse than this. But I decided that I didn't want to be like that, and I didn't want to have a dramatic life. And who thinks that as a child? But here I was thinking that as a child. But I was also a church kid. I spent, all day Sunday, Wednesday, and Friday in church. So all day church on Sunday, Bible study on Wednesday, and choir rehearsal on Friday. And I played basketball. Yeah, I know. It worked out wonderfully, though. I don't regret it. Those were my friends. Those are the kids in the neighborhood, and that's who I grew up with. So it was great. I didn't know any different, so I didn't have anything to, miss out, and I didn't have the FOMO thing if I had high school friends that were going out or anything like that. in that sense, I was a little bit boring, and I'm okay with that. Let's see, dream careers as a child. Oddly, and I'm rather embarrassed to say this, I wanted to be a police officer as a kid. I don't feel that way now. Not at all. Again, I'm embarrassed to say that, but I definitely wanted to. And I'll give you a short story as to why. There was a program, so we grew up like hood adjacent. So there was a program called I think it was called DARE at one point, but then it was called SANE. It was like a drug prevention something or other. A whole bunch of black and brown kids, and the sheriff's department that was in our town. I call it a town because it was like one high school. There was 2 grade schools that you could go to, and most people knew each other, even though it was in Southern California, which is huge. And that program was every summer, and it was all the sheriffs from the like local town sheriff's department, and they would come and do crafts with us, take us on field trips. That's the first time I went to an amusement park. We went to a water park. I didn't know how to swim, so it was a lot of like wading in the wading pool. But that really gave me a different perception of what police officers were, and that they were all nice. And so I was like, oh, I want to do that. And then I grew up, and now we live in the times that we live in now. And so when I became a teenager and later on in life, I was like, what was I thinking? Like, that was never going to work out. But that was a dream career of mine. Again, I'm embarrassed to say it, but it was true.
Don't be embarrassed, though. Like, it has some, validity for the times, right? Like, you were looking up, like, they were supportive. They weren't, pulled to your knowledge at that time. And the ones that you were with, were inspiring in a sense. So, not too much embarrassment, but I'm sure that had definitely shifted. Like, no, not trying
not even close.
Not trying to be the police.
No.
So let's dive a little bit into like the now you, and so some of your expertise as it relates to HR and student affairs and the type of work that got you to this work and how your path has kind of shifted over the years.
Okay. Yeah. So I'll start with student affairs because that's where I grew up professionally. So I went to a large state school in Southern California. And literally, like, I think maybe 2 months before I was going to graduate, I had no idea what I was going to do. I just knew that I didn't want to go home and live with my mom because I moved out when I was 17. I never moved back. I always found a way to either live on campus, find a scholarship that would do that, or I lived with a family friend. And one of my mentors at the time was like, you should really consider student affairs as a field. And I'm like, I don't even know what that is. I'm supposed to go into communications and communications research and policy. I didn't even love that, but that was the major that seemed to align with what I like to do. And she was like, I'm going to connect you via phone with someone from the program. I ended up going to grad school in, it was the middle of nowhere, Illinois. Population, I think that was literally a town. I think the whole population was about 8,000 when the students weren't in, and about maybe 28,000 when the semester was in. And it felt like supernatural. I just didn't make the connection that people work at a university and get paid, which was, obviously, duh. Nobody does it for free. But I just didn't make that connection. No, I'm like, these people are all here working. I wonder what they do to make money. So I fell into that. I loved it when I first started. I loved my grad school experience. I worked in housing and residential life for probably a total of 10 years between like undergraduate to being a professional and ending as an assistant director. And then I moved into student conduct work, which was not great, but it paid nicely at the time. And then I moved into student crisis work and eventually into the Dean of Students office. And I think the way that I say I jungle gymmed throughout my career in terms of being pretty moldable into a department. So I didn't feel like I had a specialty, but I felt like I could be generalist enough to be able to dabble in this, do that. I know how to talk to people. I can figure out systems pretty well. So transitioning from one specific area within student affairs was fairly easy in terms of like, I feel like I can do this and I have the support from a supervisor or a vice president, then they're going to give me the room to learn and grow and put me in contact with people who will help me to succeed if I felt like I was fledgling. So that in its sense, so it's always interesting when I think about my career in student affairs of, like, I did a lot of things, but I can't honestly tell you the thing that I do really, really well, because you kind of have to do a little bit of all of it to be able to stay afloat and to be able to be promoted. And I'll also say that I left each job by choice. Some people are kind of ushered out of jobs. I left everyone by choice, and that I was asked to, like, take on this new thing because I filled holes. So if somebody got terminated or they left the job by choice, then they were like, we need somebody now. We think Shimina can do it because she can hold these things up for us. And that is what catapulted me into human resources. I'm in this Facebook group. There are folks who are trying to transition out of student affairs. If you want me to say the name of it, I will, but it's called Expatriates of Student Affairs, which I think is an interesting name, but be that as it may.
That's how I think that's how we got connected, because I'm in that group.
Oh,
okay.
Quite possibly. But it was, I thought I was doing HR this whole time, right? I'm thinking, like, I interview people, I look at resumes, I do training, and I know how to facilitate a conversation. And so I naively, to be honest, thought, like, oh, this will be an easy transition. And then I got my first job. I was at the university. I was an HR specialist. And really that was, in the education sense, I was pushing a lot of papers. I was reviewing job descriptions. I was making sure people got paid on time. And it wasn't the type of development that I thought that I was going to be doing or instituting change from that level. But then I decided to pursue it full time. Number one, I got super burned out in student affairs. I wasn't taking care of myself. I was anxious. Students can sometimes be not nice, and they would show up and demand to see me. I had some students try to occupy my office. They would send, like, aggressive emails, like aggressive in tone. Like, if you were reading it, like, if I were to give voice to it, it had an attitude. And I was like, I can't do this anymore. I was, like, anxious to go to work for probably before I made the decision to leave and actually start applying for jobs. Probably the last 2 months before that, I didn't want to go to work. I would show up when I'm supposed to be there, leave right at 5 o'clock, and not think about it, but actually think about it. I wouldn't do any work, but I would, like, stress about the next day and what would be in my inbox when I got there. And I was like, there's got to be better. There's better than this. Like, I don't want to live a life that is this stressful for not really a good reason. And human resources, I thought, would give me a chance to kind of apply that generalist skill set and dabble in some things that I hadn't done before. Because I like things that start and they finish. So I was like, okay, benefits. It starts, you sign people up, and you take people off when they leave. They may have questions in between, but it's not going to be, unless you're changing, like, benefits providers, it's going to be pretty steady. Payroll. Get people in, you get them paid on time, that's it. So long as you do that, you can finish. So those are the things that I like the start and the finish of things. But my job now, I work at a nonprofit, and I've been there almost a year come March. And my skills are so relatable to, I didn't realize how much I was doing in education, that people just don't have the capacity to know how or to do or to activate outside of education. It's odd in that sense when I'm having conversations with people like, well, have you talked to the person? And that seems to be rocket science. Like, what do I say? And I'm like, okay, let's role play for like 5 minutes and see, like, if you said this out loud, how would it feel? So I'm finding it, in a sense, very easy, but the learning curve of there's so many laws to try to learn and try to figure out, and like, it's a little bit mind-boggling how much HR people do, which I didn't realize. And let me tell you, I have not ran an interview panel. I barely look at resumes because we have a system that does that, and they kind of pull out the keywords. So I thought I was doing like big HR stuff. And I'm like, no, there's a whole component around compliance, and the legality of it is huge. What do you put in a job description that doesn't hold you accountable for people who may be in the job and we have to let them go for whatever reason. There's a lot to learn, and I think that's the other thing that, as a learner, it's not one of my strengths, but I like to learn. I like to be in an environment where I can soak up things, apply, and make them make sense and break it down for other people so that it is accessible. And I found that to be kind of like my niche area if I had one, like the coaching piece and breaking down information so that people can access it. Because it's great to have all these big words and talk at this really high level. But if you don't have people who understand those things, it doesn't make sense. You're basically talking to a wall.
Yeah. It's like if you can't translate, then it's like, why are you talking? You get what I'm saying? And I think sometimes you get very, just like industry specific, if you will, and like talking over people's heads all the time because we're using the jargon that, you know, we know or, you know, in whatever area you're in. But then what about the person that's on the other side?
Exactly. Oh, you know, one other thing that I loved about moving into human resources, every company, organization, institution has their human resources or they need a human resources team. So I'm like, I anticipate always being able to find work somewhere because people need it. And if they don't have it, if they don't have it, you're like, oh, you need it. Like this is a mess. So I wanted something that was going to be kind of universal and not so I only work in education and I can only do housing or student crisis work because that doesn't translate. People don't understand what that means when you go to apply for a job that's outside of education. They're like, what do you mean? Like, what is this? Students. I'm like, no, these are clients. And I'm like, oh,
what exactly are you doing here?
Yeah.
How do I get you working?
Yeah. The transformation of my resume from like super like industry specific and higher ed to like something that like a CEO would understand was a journey. That was a journey in itself. And I finally got it with the help of a friend, and the moment that I got it, that's when like I started to get phone calls and requests to interview and phone screens and stuff like that. But it just needed to be more accessible to people. And that's where I was like, oh, this makes sense. People don't get it, and they're not going to work hard to get it because they don't need to. I need them. They don't know that they need me yet.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. So you kind of already schemed over like while you're trotting this path when you're talking around the transferability of it and something that doesn't just sink you into like a pit hole of like, I just do these things. So I'm going to like switch it up a little bit. And so I was doing snooping twice, you know, some IG snooping, some podcast snooping. And we're not going to call it snooping. We're going to call it like market research or something. We're not going to say
okay.
And so in that, in that I see two quick things. So I need you to tell me two quick things about two quick things and, you know, what that platform, you know, is and produces and things like that. So dive in that.
Sure. So I like to talk. That's one thing. And I didn't find that I was hearing my voice out in the universe atmosphere. And I had actually done two quick things on my Facebook when I was like more into Facebook. I would do like two quick things and put like oftentimes a snarky or a sharp or witty comment about two quick things, usually related to something with work. And I would never post it like on the day that something happened or a feeling about it. I'd do it like a few weeks outside a bank of two quick things just to try to share some knowledge with people around like, this is what you don't do. Or this is a way that you could respond to this type of situation. And I started to get a lot of people like emailing me or messaging me on Facebook being like, that was really good. Like, can you keep doing the two quick things? And so it actually started maybe in like 2014, 2015 of me writing. And I know that now because I know how to find the memories thing on Facebook. And I was just writing what was in my head.
Is golden.
Yes. Listen, I was like, how are people finding this? And I was like, oh, there's a little memories button. But yeah, I was like, why haven't I done this? Like I should do something with this. I got into podcasts a few years ago, just listening. I didn't know what they were, and I'm not even sure how I found my first one. And my first one was very oddly the Jillian Michaels podcast. I couldn't even tell you how I found it because I didn't have an iPhone for a really long time. I was an Android user, so I don't know how I found it. I don't listen to her anymore. I found her to be somewhat problematic in some of the things that she says. But that was the first one that I listened to, and I was like, people put this out, huh? How do they do it? And then a friend of mine was like, you should start a podcast. And I was like, yeah, that sounds cute, whatever. I didn't even have a laptop. So a friend of mine was like, so this is my second podcast, actually. I used to have another one with a friend of mine, and that was called HBIC, Head Boss in Charge was what we called it because we were trying to play off the HNIC. But I won't give the acronym of what that means. If you know it, you know it. But I was like, I'll just leave that as that. And we talked about a lot of things. And then a bunch of life things happened, and we could no longer continue doing the show. And I was like, I still want to put my voice out there because it's important. And I didn't see a voice that was a Black, queer woman who has a connection to her faith and her spirituality that was masculine presenting on a platform. And I knew that the things that I had to say were important for me, and they were conversations I was having with friends and family members and the folks that I mentor. We were having these conversations, and there wasn't a reason for me to not share those things with other people. And some of it was to normalize that, first of all, it doesn't have to be like the super long platform. Like, I don't need an hour or 2 hours to talk about something. Sometimes you just need snippets of stuff. You just need a quick relatable thing to either think about a situation or think about, like, am I the problem in this? I just did an episode on, like, am I the toxic one? And sometimes you just have to have somebody point those things out to you. And they're maybe not talking directly to you, but they're talking about you because it just hits home. A friend of mine says, a hit dog will holler. I don't hit dogs, but it makes, as my dog is sitting here at my feet, she always says, like, when you feel something, she's like, oh, I guess a hit dog will holler. And I'm like, yeah, because you feel a way and you have an attitude about something the stranger has said, not to you, but it's about you. And it just wasn't a voice that I found out there. So I learned how to, I think I watched like a few YouTube videos. I had procrastinated for about 6 months before recording the first episode, and there was zero reason why I couldn't. At that point, I had a laptop, I had a microphone, and I have a voice. It was just, I sat down and did it, and I was like, oh, I like this. And so here I am, I think about a year and a half in, and yeah, I love it. So that's kind of how Two Quick Things happen. It's just finding a voice that, creating a space for myself when I didn't think that there was a voice like that out there that I could relate to. And yeah, so that's what I do.
That's awesome. I mean, it's cool, and it's like quick. I've listened to a few episodes. I'm actually about to listen to your Woman Evolve episode.
Listen.
Because I went and it snatched my life also, so I need to see how it snatched yours. Because that was,
I'm telling you,
an amazing experience, and I love when I can have that kind of neutral ground with folks.
Yeah. Well, I went to I went to the My Talk to retreat. Are you familiar? I don't know if you're familiar with
Really? Yeah, no, I am in my taught me, okay?
Right?
Taught me.
So I had gotten into that retreat, like, we got in like the year before. So it was like the April before. So it was a whole year of like leading up to that actual event. But in that meantime, I think I had heard from a friend of mine about Woman Evolve. And I was like, I like church, but I don't know if I want to be churchy that much. And so I was like, I like what Sarah Jakes Roberts has to say. And then I found out that she was coming into the My Talk to retreat. And I was like, look at God. And I was like, I have to meet her. I'm kind of awkward in person at the beginning. And I know that about myself. So I felt like I needed to like robot up to her or like whatever. She was super nice. And then I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to your retreat. And she's like, I know, you DM'd me. And she's like, it's me that DMs back. And I'm thinking, first of all, what? You manage your own account? Like,
right? Like, for real?
I was like, okay. And then I had the Inner Circle ticket for Woman Evolved.
Mm-hmm.
And then a few women that I had met at the retreat were also going, so it was great to see them again. And look, I'm getting all excited. But when I tell you, like, that whole experience was everything, to this day, I'm still listening to two of the messages that I heard there. You were there.
So Skin in the Game faithfully, okay?
Listen.
I faithfully listen to Skin in the Game anytime I need to get myself back together. And I often share, because I'm a Sarah Jakes Roberts, just a big fan. I was a very big fan of her father, and then I bumped into her, and now I'm a fan of the family. But I think I can't necessarily even say that's my favorite Sarah service. But what I can say is, being that I was there, it takes me to a place that helps me to just continue. That's about it. So you understand, we could go on for days. So y'all, we're not gonna bore y'all with shameless plug. If that is something that, you know, you think you would enjoy, you need to get in there for 2020. I bought my ticket while I was at the airport.
I bought my ticket as soon as they when I got my bag. I flew through the internet because I couldn't find the link at first, and I was like, let me go ahead and get this Inner Circle ticket now. Some will be mad when the price goes up. And I have to be there.
Yeah, I have to be there again. It was life changing. It was definitely life changing. So yes, we'll be there again. I'll be back on that side of the world.
So we're gonna have a meetup. Okay, I hear you. We about to have a meetup.
Link up. Yes, exactly. Right. Great. You know, I'm ready for it. We need to put it down on the calendar. We need to do like lunch or breakfast or something. Because one thing that was like, shameless plug too, even if you aren't going to like Woman Evolve, any conference that you're going to, like, in your industry, folks, listeners, like, dive into it. That's how you get all the takeaways. So the biggest piece for me with Woman Evolve was, like, I was so in tune. Like, I had never been to Denver before, and of course, temptation, like, I wanted to, like, explore, because that's what I do when I go places I haven't been. But I was like, I'm here for a reason. And that is why I was able to just get so much from it. So yeah, that's what I'll be listening to while I eat my lunch. But continuing on, I see you have like a gym life. So how does this like play a role into, you know, who you are, your overall well-being? Does it even play a role into that? Do you just do it because you want the body right? Like what's up with that? You saw that on the IG too.
Yeah. So I didn't, like, I was an athlete in high school, and then I stopped doing stuff in college and afterward because I can't even tell you why. But I started when my girlfriend, who is now my wife, she was at a conference and I was bored. That's literally how I started going to the gym. I signed up for a gym membership because they were having some sort of deal at 24-Hour Fitness while she was gone for a week, and I was like, I'm bored. I need something to do. That's 100% the real life story of how I got into going back to the gym. I wish I could be like, I needed like a boost to my life. No, I was bored and I needed something to do because I can be a busybody sometimes. And when you join a gym and they give you that first, like, we're going to set you up with a personal trainer and they're going to walk you around and more or less waste your time and not actually do a workout. I went, and I'm a morning person, so I went for the 6 a.m. appointment. The woman didn't show up, so I was salty that I was there. And I was like, okay, I guess I'm doing this by myself. So me being me, I tend to tell people, like, if I feel wronged, like in some sort of an environment, I'm going to initiate with you what I need from you to help me feel better, so that there's no question and I don't walk around disappointed and not having used my voice. So I found the general manager and I said, look, I'm pretty upset that I made this commitment and this person didn't follow through, regardless of the reason, and there was no communication. So what I would like in return to help me feel better about having just joined this gym is I would like 6 30-minute actual workout sessions for free with a trainer different than, oh girl, can you do that? And he was like, I'm so sorry. Yes, we can do that. And I'm thinking, I'm surprised that he said yes. I was really hoping for just 2 sessions, but I was going for the extra. And so I met my trainer in that way, and I have been with him. I think we're on year 7 at that point. And he's gotten me ready for Like, he's just been challenging me this whole time. I actually like to work out now. I actually love working out, and I love to run. I became a runner maybe about 3 years ago. I've done a number of half marathons. I have a half marathon in 2 days, and it's just a way for me to release my mind, because I can hold my anxiety in my shoulders and my lower back very easily, and it's visible. Like, I look like I'm hunched up, and I look like I'm leaning over because I'm trying to, like, release tension from my back. So for me, that working out in the gym is so I don't say things that I might regret later. And it also gives me something to look forward to. And I love solitude. I can be by myself for an entire day, an entire weekend, likely an entire week, and not talk to anybody. I don't know if that's healthy or not. But most people don't want to go running like 8 or 9 miles on a weekend, like on a Sunday morning, because that's usually when I run Sunday mornings at like 7:30 or 8. Nobody wants to do that, which works great for me. So it's good solo time. I can solve most of my issues or problems while running. And it helps me. I don't generally feel bad about eating, but it helps me feel a little bit more liberty with food that I eat, because I love food and I love ice cream. But I'm not ever going to be thin. It's just, that's not in my ministry. I'm just not. And so I could be like, I'm working out to do X, Y, and Z. There was a point where I was like, my first big weight loss, that just was a byproduct of working out. Like, I didn't have a goal in mind at the time. At the end of it, my coach was like, let's do the measurements from like your first day. And we're like a year and some, man. And I had lost about 40, 45 pounds, and I knew it. And it seemed nice. It was super complimentary. People were very nice about it. And then I just realized I didn't want to be so restrictive with myself, because I felt like I couldn't do this, or I was so structured that I couldn't really enjoy the meal, or I couldn't really like go and hang out with my friends late at night, because number one, I'm not a night person, so I was tired. But also I was thinking about the next morning of getting up and being at the gym, and I just didn't want to have that kind of tension consistently. So, but I'm never going to be thin. I'm not. I just turned 40, and like this 40-year-old back and these 40-year-old hips are just going to be what they are. And so this is what it is now. But I genuinely love working out. I like the feeling of like sweating off the day and like releasing myself from the stressors that come in the day. I also go for walks during work. People don't often leave the building that I work in, but I'm like, it is like 10:45, and sometimes y'all are getting on my nerves. So let me go for a quick 15, 20-minute walk so I can close these rings on this Apple Watch and just be out of the building. So I try to work that in. Yeah, I'm like, y'all gonna make me say something I don't want to say. I need to go for a walk. Well, do you want somebody to go with? No, I don't.
No, I don't. I want to go alone.
Yes, I want to go by myself. I want to listen to some music. I want to maybe ratchet it up a little bit for 10 or 15 minutes, then come back and deal with y'all.
Yep, same here. Not many people walk from my office, which is in a like ruralized area. So I'm like walking down the street. People often stop and ask me for a ride, so it's very interesting. Like, ask me if I need a ride. So it's really funny, but
you're like, I'm good. Thank you, beloved.
Yes, like, you. I'm good. I'm actually just walking. So, yeah, I feel that. And you look great for 40. So, yeah.
Oh, thank you, sis. Thank you.
The black not cracking. You look great.
Oh, at all.
So that, that's one up. Keep working out. Keep living your best life. She's like, I was bored, and so I started working out.
Yeah, literally. Like, people are like, I had this life-changing thing. I got diagnosed. Thank the Lord I haven't been diagnosed with anything. I was just bored.
Well, you got to it. It doesn't matter. And you got some sessions in. So, it is what it is. It worked out. So we are going to get in what I like to call the Tiny Tab time machine and go way back to your teenage self. I do a lot of work with teens and their parents and self-esteem and confidence and just motivation, if you will. All of those things are just super important for them, support with them, and things like that. Because, I have some that are very similar to you goody two shoes type growing up. Not, just walking a straight and narrow. And then I have others that are not, that are more like myself, that have some, days that they was, the president of the Bruce Hughes Society, okay? So
listen,
as a teenager, got some trials and tribulations. So if you could tell your teenage self anything, what would it be?
I would say there's a long list of things, but you said that my first thought was that you don't have to structure and schedule everything. I do that a lot now. I've kind of pulled back on that after a little bit of like self-discovery and working with a therapist. I'm like, why are you so rigid? But I was really rigid. I had to have things a certain way. And back when I was a teenager, nobody was going, there was like, people weren't going to therapy. Nobody talked about it. You prayed about it and then you hoped for the best. But simply stated, not everything has to be scheduled and rigid and in your time frame. And I didn't have the pressure of like by 18 you have to do this, by 21 or 30 you have to do this. But it was very much like each hour and each day should be scheduled and you should have something that you're doing to be productive or to move something forward. And good, bad, or indifferent, I certainly think it's helped me into a degree, but it's also like right now at the age of 40, I'm learning how to relax again. There's an Instagram account called the Nap Ministry. And when I tell you the simple things in that are like, that remind you to like take a rest, or like the one that's like unclench your jaw, put your shoulders down and like breathe. Those are things that I didn't learn growing up. And so I was like, when I say goody two shoes, I was also pretty uptight. Like I was nervous about everything. I was a worrier kid. And now, it's probably in the last like 6 months since I turned 40, I'm like, girl, you don't have to schedule everything. Like you don't have to make the most of your Saturday because you don't have anything scheduled and you should be getting stuff done. And so I think last Saturday I did nothing. I think I stayed in my pajamas the whole day. It was weird, but I didn't need to do anything. There was nothing that required me to get up and go and be a busybody out in the streets. So that is something that I would tell my teenage self. You can relax and you don't have to schedule and fill up all of your time because you think you should.
I feel that.
Yeah.
I feel that one. I feel that.
And it's hard. It's very hard.
I need to tell myself that now, and I'm not a teenager, but I feel
right.
It's very hard. I think that, I think the first time we rescheduled was because I was, dealing with my mom and her illness, and I can't say that. This most recent time that she's been sick, it did teach me like to not be as stern and be more fluid with my schedule, and to just like breathe, and it's okay to have to change things, and it's okay to, be a few minutes late, or it's okay to just be like, you know what, this meeting could be a phone call, so I'm not coming, so
listen,
so not me. And so it was definitely very different and challenging, but it also made me hone in on my priorities too, because I think I have some stuff on the calendar that didn't really matter. So it made me decide what's for real important and what's kind of really not. And then,
well, it takes those experiences to remind you of like, first of all, you're not the end all be all of everything. This is what I tell myself. Like, things are going to go on with or without you, sis.
Exactly.
And you don't have to be all things to all people.
That's it. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's it. No words needed after that. Like, that's it. Drop mic. We can close it out now. But seriously, we are. So how can the listeners connect with you after this? Where can we find you? Where can we find the podcast? Just let us know the deets.
All right. So let's see. The podcast is called Two Quick Things. I am on, one day I'll get better at the marketing of this, but right now this is where I am. It's on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Google Play, SoundCloud, Spotify. I think those are the 5 places that it's at. So you could, if you look up Two Quick Things on any of those you will find me. I come up, and you can listen to the latest episodes. I drop probably every week, if not every week and a half. It depends on how I'm feeling. So 90% of the time it's every week, but sometimes I'm tired and it doesn't come out. Instagram, you can look up 2 quick things, or I was trying to do keep my personal life separate from this. I'm the same person on both platforms. So 2 quick things, or S is for Shimina. It looks like sis, the number 4, Shimina, but it's supposed to be S is for Shimina. And Twitter, I'm super not active on Twitter. I'm a person that close to Twitter all the time, but I don't really post much. But you can slide in DMs there under TQT podcast. Somebody had 2 quick things taken, I believe. Or Shimmy_the_Bay. So Shimmy the Bay. And you know what about the Shimmy the Bay thing? I had students who were being extra, so I had to change my Twitter name. That's literally the reason why it's Shimmy the Bay. It used to be S's for Shimina, and maybe one day I'll change it back. But these students were being so extra and finding me everywhere. And I was like, this is enough.
Yeah, no, y'all.
Enough of this.
Yeah, y'all can't. Right. I'm not trying to be connected with y'all. Okay? So I got it.
No. You're not my friend.
We are not friends.
No. But those are places you can find me.
I don't know. Let me not cut you off. But
we'll
find you. We'll connect. Thank you so much, Shimina, for being on the show. I'm super, super, super excited to be a listener now to Quick Things. I had to stalk it to learn a little bit more about you, but now I'm like, oh, I actually like this, so we're gonna keep listening. Subscribe.
Awesome.
So thanks so much. Have a good one.
All right, you too.
Wow. Told y'all it was going to be a goodie. Once again, the ways to connect with Shimina are in the show notes. Hope you enjoyed this insightful interview. Be sure to rate, review, and share the podcast before you leave this space. That helps us to reach more folks and allow them to be empowered by these stories from others, the timeless gems, and the insightful book reviews that we're sharing in this space. Until next time.
She was very encouraging, very inspiring, and she actually motivated me.